Hi everyone, welcome to Book Talk this week. I brought in a selection of books that I think would be perfect for curling up on the couch. You know, we get home from school and it's dark right away, and today was a snowy day, and I wanted to talk about books that I thought, you know what, might be really fabulous for this winter that we're now in. And so let me start with The Marrow Thieves. And I don't know if you've heard of it. It came out 2 years ago. It's a Canadian author, and she's created this sort of futuristic apocalyptic world in Canada where we've got folks who can't dream anymore. And it's really messing with them because they feel stressed, they don't feel hopeful, they don't feel better after a night's sleep. And they make this discovery that Indigenous people have something special in their bone marrow. So you can imagine how negative and nasty this gets, because now we're going to hunt down the Indigenous folks and suck out their bone marrow, which of course has perilous consequences for them. So this is The Marrow Thieves, and if you are one of our French immersion students, you can also check out this title. We've just added it in French as well, called Les Pilleurs de Rêve. So that's a start in the collection, and on this similar theme of Indigenous folks, we've just added Red Wolf. So this takes us back to the 1800s in Ontario, and we've got a young boy who's being forced to head off to residential school. He tries to flee. He pairs back up with this wolf that he's befriended. So Crooked Ear, his timber wolf orphan little guy, pairs back up with him, and they try to make their way home through the winter. So see what happens for those two. Another Indigenous book is called Messenger 93. And in this story, we've got a young gal who feels like she's been hearing prophecies, a little like Joan of Arc. And so the crow is prophesizing that in 7 days something nefarious is going to happen. And so we've got a gal that goes on a bit of a journey. She pairs up with a Cree boy. And the notes on this one talks about some serious subjects, that there's missing girls, there's white privilege, there's cultural appropriation. So if you like a little more serious read, you might want to figure out what happens to our gal in Messenger 93. Now, while on the theme of crows, I have to tell you about my absolute favorite fantasy book from 2 years ago called The Six of Crows. And we've just added a couple copies to the library because this is really an amazing fantasy. This is Leigh Bardugo, and she wrote Shadow and Bone, and that's actually coming to Netflix. So you'll probably see this author's name around more. This story is super fun. You take a cast of 6 people that are total outcasts. They hardly get along together. They're all goofballs. One's a convict, one is a thief, one's a sharpshooter, one's a runaway, one's a spy, and one has this magic power to be able to stop people's hearts. And so you put these 6 people together, and they go off on this big heist. So they have to plan the heist and pull off this heist that nobody thought they could pull off, save the world. So all sorts of good things going on here. You have to be a little patient to get into her world because she creates a very elaborate fantasy world with different folks that have magical powers. But once you get through the initial part of figuring out her world, this, I promise you, will be one of your favorite reads. So while we're talking about fantasy, I wanted to tell you that Cassandra Clare, the author of The City of Bones, just has a brand new series that's spinning off. And this is the first one. It's called The Red Scrolls of Magic. So in this one, we encounter Magnus Bane again with his buddy Alec. And they're off on a new adventure with this cult that inadvertently he had started when he was younger as a joke. But this cult is not a joke anymore, so off they got to go and save the day. We've got a new series called Flamecaster. It's been out for a few years, but it's new to us. And what I love about this one is we've got a prince who's in exile, and he wants revenge on a king. We've got a girl with a curse who also wants revenge on a king, so they pair up. But you know what? When you have a book that has magic, dragons, pirates, and revenge, and apparently this king is so villainous that it's one of the biggest villains, one reader said, she's ever encountered in fiction. So add that with some humor and some snarky characters, and I think you've got a winning book. So Flamecaster is a great new series we've added in. We've got another series that's been out for a little bit, but it's called Finnegan of the Rock. This fantasy is a little more serious. We've got a situation where this young man was 9 when they came and took over his kingdom, slaughtered everybody in the royal family. And so 10 years later, we catch up to him. A young gal has appeared that claims to be an heir to this royal family. So off we go, and we'll see what happens with Finnegan of the Rock. This one is a little bit deeper. It's rated as more of a mature read. But if you love an emotional roller coaster and really rich characters, this is the read for you. Now, I don't know if anyone else got on the Caraval wagon, but Caraval was a little like Hunger Games, maybe, in that you get an entrance into this game and only certain people get a lucky ticket to play this game, except it's a little deadly. And so in Caraval, our gal goes off with this young man she just met, and they're trying to survive the game and win. And now this is book 2 in Legendary. And as you know it, she has to fall back into the game to save the day once again. And so Legendary takes her back through the same dangerous game. So we've just added those to the library. So anyone likes sort of those games, I think you'll really love that one. We've just going to wrap up with a couple historical fiction titles. A lot of my 9s were doing historical fiction with World War II and concentration camps, so we've just added some copies of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas to the library. So if you like a concentration camp story and these boys befriend each other, one's inside the fence and one's outside the fence, that's a great quick read. Something a little fun, a couple years ago a book came out, The Gentleman's Guide to Love and Letters. And this is the female version. Now this is the young man's sister, and she really wants to become a doctor, but this is set back in the past where women didn't become doctors. She's got a lead on her friend is marrying a young doctor, so she wants to see if she can get his help. So she heads off across Europe to see if she can get some help on that front. And this one's called The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy. And to wrap up our historical fiction look, this one is called Grave Mercy, and we've got a young gal who is set in 15th century France, and she was supposed to be in this arranged marriage, so she escapes that, only to end up in a convent, and they train her to be an assassin. And as you know, she now has to kill somebody that she's befriended that she doesn't want to kill, so she has to decide, will she take on this assignment? She heads to the High Court of Brittany in France, and there's all sorts of games and deadly intrigue in the court. She has to decide what she's going to do. So, Grave Mercy, great new series we've added in historical fiction. So I hope that gives you some awesome new ideas for what to do on these dark, snowy nights. And come see me if you have any questions. Otherwise, happy reading.